I've got a challenge for you guys, which is something light and fun to play with. And it's an invitation to engage with the deeper listening practice of understanding our motivations and our intentions and building a relationship with those and getting to the point where we refine and clarify and really, really appreciate the why behind what we are seeking to explore and experience in our external world, and how this translates to our communication when we are expressing our ideas to other people and when we are asking for what we need. So until we get really clear on what our needs are for us personally and what the reasons behind those are, it becomes a barrier for us to have that understood by other people. So one way that is fun to explore this is also to think about a subsequent benefit of refining and clarifying your intentions and strengthening that capacity. The consequence is that we are going to have a clearer understanding when other people give us information, when other people come into our sphere, into our space, into our inboxes, send us messages, make requests. And I'm talking about the subtle elements of communication that are not always explicitly articulated, verbally or textually. So one way to think about this, if you're struggling to grasp this concept, is, has anyone ever said something to you and yet you felt that what they were saying didn't resonate with how it made you feel? Or if somebody sent you a message or some communication and you felt that there was an underlying message or something that conflicted the presentation of that information. So when we're tapping into the capability of introception and exploring and navigating that within our own frame of understanding, and using different tools to strengthen and heighten that awareness and to calm the central nervous system and to calm the mind chatter and all of the distractions, so that we can really hone in on this like fine thread, which is our inner knowing sense and awareness, which is, our animal instinct, for another way to think about it. As we strengthen and refine that, we can more clearly glean and discern that subtle communication from others in how they communicate with us and how they respond to us. And one example I want to give about how we can start to test this and integrate this idea is, as we are strengthening and gaining more confidence in our ability to discern and to glean information and to read subtle elements of communication, it's easy to let our confidence override and almost try and intervene as a protective mechanism. So if we anticipate what people are going to say, what they're going to ask us, if we anticipate the true intention and the true meaning of what we think somebody is trying to get across before we've given them space to actually articulate that and express that in a more coherent way, you know, with clear, direct language that actually is a more tangible way for us to receive the information. And, you know, even at that point, if it's not landing, if it's not resonating, we do have a frame or a reference point to make deeper inquiry and to say, oh, you said, but did you mean, or am I understanding this correctly when you say, you know, this? Whereas if we are responding purely based on the felt sense without this other reference point, which, yes, is more cerebral and it's more logical, we do run the risk of creating a disruption in the flow of that communication. And I'm thinking that this is more relevant to apply in context of relationship with people that we don't know so well. It's very hard not to respond with purely only a felt sense with our relatives and people that we're really close to, people that, you know, we can almost finish their sentence or their thought form or expression for them before it even comes out of their mouth, because we understand their communication patterns deeply just through the shared experience of cohabitation and a relationship that builds and evolves over time, even if it's not the best relationship. You know, oftentimes the ones that are challenging, it's really interesting that we are still connected to communication patterns with other people. So I'm talking about all this from a really social standpoint, and not getting into too much of the psychology or the kind of interrelational energetics of it, because that's a massive subject. But just through kind of social observation here, human behavior characteristics, and misunderstanding happens on several levels. So if you come to me and give me information and I'm ambiguous about, oh, they've said this, but I don't feel it's this, I feel that there's something else there, I don't want to disregard the felt sense that's giving me actually some really clear information, because that felt sense is part of my instinct and it's part of my protective mechanism and it's there for good reason. And if I build trust and confidence in that, I can learn to use that as a way of having a more full understanding of information and how it's coming to me, so that I've got more, I've got a greater range of tools to discern, like, you know, what is this? Can I compute? Do I understand? Is this good? Is this comfortable? Is this safe? So coming back to these like really basic primal questions. But if I am in a reactive space where I'm getting that information and it's kind of not correlating with the verbal or the textual information that I'm receiving, and I'm kind of jumping the gun and I'm anticipating, and therefore I'm filling in the gaps. I'm starting to tell someone else's story for them. Then I run the risk of creating confusion. I run the risk of shutting that person down because they no longer feel safe to continue exploring their ideas, because their rate of expression versus their intention and ideas as they're coming forward might not be flowing easily together. So I run the risk of undermining that individual's capacity to step into that space where they can explore and play with integrating all of these different elements that come together when we're sharing and expressing our ideas. The other is that I disrupt my own awareness of being able to objectively understand the information that I'm receiving. So if I'm getting a message and it says one thing, but it contradicts what I'm feeling, if I give space for that expression to evolve rather than jumping the gun and being like, oh, they're saying that, they definitely mean that, and I'm sure of it. Giving space and allowing that person to express in a more tangible way, in a more explicit way, which gives us then data, actual data, to be able to compare. You know, they've said this was my anticipation, this was my felt sense about where things were going, what was coming through, and is there any relationship between those two things? Has what they have said, does it confirm my feelings? Does it confirm my suspicions? You know, if we're kind of thinking on those levels. This is like another element of like really, really nuanced communication. And as you listen to this, I hope that there's enough, you know, broadening of that perspective for you to be able to start thinking of cases and examples where this might crop up, you know, in your life. And just play, you know, giving yourself that space to refine and clarify your own felt sense and awareness of your own processes, and having tangible ways to reflect back on that and to, you know, find confidence in that. So if we're actively journaling or channeling through a creative outlet, and then we have something to look at and process and assess and evaluate afterwards, and sort of, does that thing that I created, does that piece of writing that I created truly reflect the feelings that I was processing at that point in time? And it's like anything with a creative practice, with a craft, if you are still in the early stages of honing those skills, then there might be a sort of a disconnection, or a feeling that, you know, whatever you create is not meeting your standards. It's not skilled or complex enough to be able to contain the range of emotional spectrum that you're actually experiencing and that you wish to understand. But as time goes on and those skills become more refined, your creative practice, whatever it is, will become more confident. And then it just becomes a tool. It becomes a space that you can go into and you're like, right, okay, I'm feeling or I'm feeling and I'm gonna write, I'm gonna vocalize, I'm gonna go into breath work. And all of those become channels which you explore the felt sense to the end of its expression, or until you feel that that's enough of that. And then you have something tangible to reflect on. And that might be the transition from one state into another. It might be some writing that you can look back on. It might be a recording of some sound that you've been working with or vocalizing with. And you will develop your own formula, your own approach to how can I validate these for myself? How can I know that this is something of quality that expresses my authenticity? And only you can decide that. Only you will know that. You can use guidelines and frameworks and parameters that other people have offered as kind of structural anchors to help ground the ideas. But it's going to be ultimately the felt recognition sense of like, oh, right, okay, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. And that's subtle. And that is something that does take time and practice, you know, to come and drop into those spaces again and again, and then start to use those as tools that can be really helpful as activators to shift your energy, just to, you know, take you into a creative space. So once you have a good foundation, let's say, with that, that's when things become interesting in terms of how you're receiving information, how you're receiving communication from other people, and what subtleties can you start to discern, you know. And it's everything is coming through your own lens, your own interpretations, your own perceptions, your own sensitivities, based on your enculturalization, based on how you've been socialized, and all of those subtle differences are creating this unique lens through which you are perceiving and integrating information. So if you can polish that lens and get really, really clear and start to understand like what motivates me, what excites me, what agitates me, you know, it doesn't have to be so fragmented as to be split into all of these different channels, but certainly having a more multifaceted, more holistic perspective does involve encompassing, you know, like a 360-degree point of view. So with that being said, we start to digest and process information in a 360-degree manner. You know, it's not just what someone says to us. It's like, okay, if you've been doing body work, if you've been doing breath work, if you've been developing these tools and skill sets yourself, the way that someone vocalizes and how they communicate and how that's expressed and how you integrate and understand that is going to be highly attuned. So I'm curious, if you play with this, I'm really, really interested to know, you know, what comes through for you, and also to give this reminder that we can trust our instincts. You know, we might have trauma, we might have triggers, we might have reactive behaviors, we might have bad habits, but these are all messages, these are all information. They're tools, they help direct us to what our immediate needs are. They are indicators. So if you are engaging with 5 elements of voice work and you're starting to expand self awareness through a broad range of activities, and your intention is ultimately positive and it's about a therapeutic quality, it's about an expansive, curious quality, it's about creativity, and we're utilizing these tools as mediums for personal development in a very playful way and in a very light way, then there's many tendrils, many things that can shift and expand. And yes, listening with the whole body, with the whole felt sense, with the whole the whole system, with all of the elements, listening with the 5 elements. So think on that one, and we'd love to know what your experiences are, and if you play with this, let me know. I'm so curious.